Welcome to Victor Narrates Reddit. Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Now, let's begin. My unfaithful wife tried to seduce me into forgiving her, but my rejection led her to the worst tragic end. I am 32 years old and have been married to my wife, Elena, 30, for 4 years. We have been together for 9. Our relationship had been incredible, loving, and full of support. We had good communication, almost never argued, and our life as a couple only got better with the years. We had already talked about infidelity in the past, and I was always very clear. If that were to ever happen, it would all be over. Elena went to visit her family last weekend, which was quite normal. Before she left on Friday night, we had a small argument about keeping the house tidy, so communication was a bit limited. On Saturday, I knew she was going out to a bar with some friends. I trusted her 100%, so I didn't think anything of it. Before I went to sleep, I sent her a message saying I hoped she had a good night. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I saw a missed call from Elena at 4 a.m. I called her immediately to see if she was okay, but she didn't answer. After a few hours, I tried again several times with no response. About an hour later, I received a message from her saying she was fine and would be driving back soon. Elena arrived home in the late afternoon, and she looked awful. It was obvious she had been crying. She wasn't wearing makeup, which was very rare for her, and she looked like a shadow of her former self. I knew immediately that something was wrong. She wouldn't let me hug her and barely spoke. I sat her down on the couch and made her some tea. I gently encouraged her to tell me what was wrong, and she broke down into uncontrollable sobs for at least 10 minutes while I tried to comfort her. Then, stopping every 2 words, she proceeded to tell me that she had slept with someone the night before after leaving the bar. In that precise moment, something in my brain snapped. I can't describe it any other way. I got up immediately, got in the car, and left. I drove to a park and walked around there for about an hour. Elena was calling me nonstop, so I turned off my phone. When I got home, I grabbed 2 suitcases from the garage and went to our bedroom. I forcibly packed some of her clothes and shoes and left the suitcases by the front door. Elena was on the living room floor, curled up in a ball, and crying her eyes out. I called her best friend, who lives nearby, and told her that Elena needed a place to stay and to come pick her up, that Elena would explain everything later. She clung to my legs, trying to stop me from leaving. When I returned home later, Elena was gone, and so were her suitcases. On Monday, with a slightly clearer head, I answered one of Elena's many calls. I told her I needed her to send me an email detailing what happened that night as much as possible, and that if she held back any details, there would be no chance of reconciliation. I received that email on Monday night, but to this day, I have not opened it. Since that day, everyone has been trying to contact me, but I have only dedicated myself to work, exercise, and sleep. One of our friends showed up at my house with a heavy attitude, demanding an explanation. I told her to talk to Elena and closed the door in her face. I have also been speaking with divorce lawyers. I moved our money into separate accounts and blocked Elena and all her friends everywhere. Everything I've done since I found out feels like I'm on autopilot. I don't feel angry or sad or overly emotional, just numb. Elena slipped a note under the door yesterday, asking me to meet the next day, but I'm confused. Should I meet with her? Will this change anything? Does it make any sense to try to reconcile? Is it normal to feel like a robot? And how do I get out of this state? Just to add, when I first came home, Elena confirmed that it wasn't a meaningless fling. She was drunk, but she knew perfectly well what she was doing. Update 1: Elena came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started stammering apologies, but I stopped her and we sat down to talk. I began by telling Elena that I would be recording the audio of our conversation, and she agreed. Then I asked her to explain what had happened and clarified that I still hadn't read the email she sent me. Elena said she was at the bar with 2 friends whom I know and like, and she told me what she drank. I was surprised by how little she had drunk because it was the same amount we normally have when we go out for dinner, a couple of glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Marcos, 27, who went to pick them up around midnight. It was a running joke in their group that Marcos has had a huge crush on Elena since high school, and I had even heard them joke about it myself. The four of them went to get something to eat, and then Marcos dropped each of them off at their homes until only he and Elena were left. Elena said she didn't want Marcos to drive 20 minutes to his parents' house after working all day, so she would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into the apartment to order the Uber, but couldn't get a ride. Marcos suggested she stay and sleep in his bed and that he would use the couch, then drive her home in the morning. Elena refused and kept trying to get an Uber. They were sitting on Marcos's bed when he kissed her. She kissed him back, and they ended up having sex. After that, she broke down crying from guilt, and Marcos drove her home. She cried for another hour and tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to pause the conversation several times because Elena kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake, that she got carried away in the moment, that it was horrible, that she only loves me, and blah, blah, blah. When she finished, I told her that her story didn't make sense, but at this point, it didn't matter because I was done with this. This triggered another crying fit. I told her I would proceed with the divorce arrangements, but that for the next month, we would be separated with no contact. I also said that we would both remain faithful, get a full STD screening, and that she would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she met these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way to move forward that wasn't divorce. She eagerly agreed, but made it clear she didn't expect me to be faithful. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after having time to process everything that happened. I'm still 99% sure that's where we're headed, but I need to be 100% sure. Update: a few things have happened in the last week, so I thought I'd post an update in case anyone is interested. First of all, I'm no longer in robot mode. I've been having bursts of intense anger and betrayal, but I've kept myself busy with work and exercise. My friends have also been great since they found out, and have been getting me out of the house to hang out. I decided to read the email, and I wish I hadn't. The story Elena told in the email was mostly the same, but it didn't mention going into Marcos's apartment to order an Uber. There were also quite explicit details of what they did, how long it lasted, and that they apparently used a condom. I'll never be able to unsee that description. Many people who originally criticized me for kicking Elena out of the house have now apologized, but they can keep their apologies. Elena's parents got in touch to apologize, and I spoke with them because we had a good relationship. Before all this, they begged me to try and fix things but said they would understand if I decided to divorce. I didn't commit to either option. Elena's other friend, who was there that night, contacted me to give me her version of the story. It mostly matched: bar, food, drive home. She told me she had offered for Elena to stay at her place, but Elena refused, saying she had to drive early the next morning. Marcos apparently insisted on taking Elena home. The version of the story this friend told me didn't mention Elena trying to order an Uber, only that Marcos invited her in and she accepted. I asked her if she had ever suspected anything before, and she told me that about a year ago, she went to meet Elena for coffee but found Marcos sitting with her when she arrived. Apparently, Elena looked guilty, but when asked about it, she said they had run into each other by chance. Sarah, Marcos' sister, also contacted me, and I spoke with her. She was furious with both Marcos and Elena and told me a similar story. Apparently, her whole family is upset with Marcos, and she hasn't spoken to Elena since she found out. She apologized on behalf of her idiot brother and told me she had warned him to stay away from Elena since high school. She didn't think anything else had happened between them. I haven't had any contact with Elena, but I heard she is moving into an Airbnb near our house. Apparently, she's not handling it well and has called in sick to work several times over the last few weeks. She has the support of the friend she is currently living with, and I asked her parents to keep an eye on her. Her parents came to see her this weekend. I went out with some friends over the weekend and ended up drunk at a bar. I was talking to a girl I probably could have gone home with, but I stopped myself because I wanted to maintain my self-respect. Reading the email and hearing what they had done made me lose all hope of repairing this, especially knowing that she isn't being honest with me about other things. So, who knows? I'm going to move forward with the divorce and maybe not even wait a month before telling Elena this is my final decision. Update 3: I hesitated to post this update, but many people seem to be invested in this mess, so here it is. Apologies in advance if it's too much information. Elena sent me an email last week asking to pick up some things she needed for work. My lawyer told me not to prevent her from accessing the house or her belongings, so I reluctantly agreed for her to come on Thursday night while I was at the gym. I told her she had to be out by 7:30 p.m., but when I got home at 8, she was still there. When I walked in, she had left a couple of work items by the stairs and was chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked incredible, hair and makeup done, wearing one of the dresses I like. The whole place was tidy and clean. I calmly asked her to leave immediately. She walked towards the door but stopped and asked if we could talk. I should have said no, but eventually I agreed. We sat down and had a conversation for about an hour that jumped from one topic to another. Again, I told her I would be recording the audio, and she agreed. I started by asking if she had fulfilled her part of the agreement we made last time we spoke. She told me she had taken an STD test, which came back all negative, as did mine, fortunately, and a pregnancy test that was also negative. She hadn't been with anyone else and had also told several friends and family what happened. Many of them were furious and not speaking to her. I asked her many of the questions that had been swirling in my head for the past few weeks. She confirmed that the reason she went into Marcos's apartment, the Uber story, was complete bullshit. She said he invited her in for a drink and she accepted, knowing on some level that something was going to happen. She can't explain why she did it other than being selfish and enjoying the attention. She also confirmed that she had messaged with Marcos several times over the years because he showered her with compliments and made her feel good. He always initiated the conversation, and she claims, was careful not to lead him on, assuring me she never sent explicit messages or photos. Elena also told me they had kissed a few months before we were together, but they never had sex. She admitted she was always a little curious. Her version of being caught at the coffee shop was that Marcos messaged her asking what she was doing. She told him where she was, and he showed up. She swore this was the first time they had done anything since we had been together. She said there was nothing missing in our relationship, and that she hates herself for ruining her perfect marriage and causing me so much pain. I told her I still didn't believe her story and that there was no point in continuing the conversation. She calmly asked what she would have to do to fix this, offering me her phone, sharing her location, not going out without me, etc. She had clearly been doing research online. I replied that I had no plans to become her prison guard, especially when I would never get over the betrayal. Then things took an unexpected turn that caught me completely off guard. She asked me to turn off the audio recording because she had something private to talk about and didn't want other people to hear it. I refused, and she reluctantly continued. She asked if I had been sexually involved with anyone else since this all happened, making it clear that she didn't care if I had. I told her no, and that I felt like I was going crazy. We used to have sex almost daily, and she started talking dirty about all the things I could do with her and to her. This included many kinky things I had wanted to try, or that we had only done a few times. She said she wanted to satisfy my needs even if we didn't get back together. She said we could have all the threesomes I wanted from now on, or that we could open the relationship on my side only, and she would find partners for us or for me herself. She was trying by all means to turn me on, and I stayed silent until she asked me who I wanted to have a threesome with. For some reason, I mentioned the name of her co-worker, who was 5 years younger than Elena and a stunning woman. That surprised her, but she didn't back down and asked what I wanted to do with her. I gave her details about a rather intense scenario, and Elena was encouraging me until I said that she would only be watching. This caught her off guard again, but she played along. I later realized I only said all that as a petty attempt to hurt Elena, something I'm not proud of. She was obviously convinced her plan was working, so she lifted her dress and got into my favorite position on the couch, begging me to have sex with her. I admit that for a few seconds, my body reacted, though my head wasn't in the game. Everything suddenly came back into focus, and the content of her email flashed into my mind. I don't know why, but I started laughing. Not a simple chuckle, but a deep belly laugh. She looked hurt, pulled away, and started crying. I told her it was time for her to go, and she left quickly, probably out of embarrassment. I also told her she should hurry up and get a lawyer because we were getting a divorce. The mental clarity after she left confirmed that I had dodged a bullet. I have a meeting with my lawyer at the end of this week and plan to move forward with the divorce as quickly as possible. Update for I thought I would give a final update on the situation for anyone who is interested. The last few months have been difficult, and I have only seen Elena in person a couple of times. After a few weeks of no contact, I decided we should talk things over with cooler heads. We went for lunch and had a calm and respectful conversation about everything that had happened and what a reconciliation would look like. Elena said she would do anything to get things back on track, and I believed her, but I didn't commit to anything. After that, Elena asked me to accompany her to see her therapist, who also had experience with married couples. I thought about it for a few days before agreeing. The session was tough, with a lot of tears, but I didn't get a clear answer as to why Elena decided to cheat on me. The therapist was surprisingly fair to both of us and non-judgmental. We started discussing reconciliation, but I told her I thought it was best to proceed with the divorce. Last week, I drove to her parents' house to drop off some tools I had borrowed from her dad. We had arranged for Elena to be there and for her parents to be out for a few hours to give us a chance to talk. I spoke with her parents alone, who were heartbroken, which was difficult, but they were both very supportive of me. During the conversation with Elena, I told her clearly that I had thought about it a lot, but I wanted to go ahead with the divorce. It came down to the fact that, in my opinion, we would never get back to where we were, and I can't see myself ever getting over the betrayal. Even if we could rebuild the trust, it would take a decade of hard work, and that's too big a risk for me. Elena finally accepted it, and we had a calm discussion about how we would divide the assets, sell the house, etc., and we wrote a formal email to our respective lawyers. We said goodbye on good terms. The divorce should be finalized by the end of the year, and the house will be put up for sale soon. In the meantime, we will have no contact and have agreed not to date anyone until everything is settled. I've had a few casual encounters, and it feels strange to be single again after all this time. I've been going to the gym, spending a lot of time with friends and family, and getting back into my hobbies. I'm optimistic about the future, and although I'm still devastated by the loss of my marriage, I feel like this has made me grow as a person. Update 5. Hello everyone. This is the final update to my story, and I write it with a heavy heart, but I needed to bring closure to this whole thing. The divorce process was officially completed a couple of months ago. The house was sold, we divided the assets, and we signed all the papers. I thought that from that moment on, we would each just go our separate ways, but things took a tragic turn. As the weeks went by, I learned from mutual friends that Elena began to decline severely. Apparently, when the divorce was finalized and reality hit her full force, she realized that she truly loved me and simply couldn't accept the idea of being without me, living with the guilt of having destroyed our marriage. A few nights ago, Elena left a message for her parents telling them she had made the decision to end her life. She was completely drunk. She got in her car and was speeding down the highway. She lost control of the vehicle, crashed into a river, and that was it. Her parents called me in despair at midnight to alert me and asked for my help in looking for her. But by the time we could react and the authorities arrived at the scene, she was already gone. It was a devastating blow for everyone. I went to support her parents at the funeral. We said our goodbyes through tears. They were always wonderful to me and told me not to blame myself for any of this. I said goodbye to them with a tight hug and promised to try to move on. It has been a very difficult process to come to terms with, but life goes on. I'm currently getting to know someone new. It's a healthy relationship based on tranquility, and I wholeheartedly hope that things work out this time. Thank you to everyone who followed my story and supported me from the first day. Take care. The most bitter lesson of this story is that forgiveness isn't always enough to heal what has been broken. Sometimes, decisions made in a second of weakness trigger a domino effect that destroys not only a relationship, but the emotional stability and future of those involved. Learning to let go is crucial, but understanding that our actions have irreversible consequences is even more so. True peace isn't found in trying to rebuild the ruins of the past, but in accepting reality, forgiving from a distance, and having the courage to move forward with one's own life.